I see a lot of our volunteers. Hi, everyone.
Awesome. I'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Our co-executive directors, Helen and Elizabeth, will kick us off in a minute. So feel free to use this time to get your popcorn and cocktails ready.
We invite you to come as you are and participate in any way that feels comfortable to you, whether that's actively engaging with us in the chat or simply letting this play in the background while you prepare your dinner.
And before we get started, just some housekeeping. During the program, which will take place until around 6 p.m., your mic will be muted, but feel free to ask us questions in the chat and we'll respond throughout the program or throughout the evening. And since we'll be screening a video, please feel free to turn off your cameras until the end of the program. And at that point, you're welcome to join us for breakout sessions or to call it a night.
We would love to know who's in the room tonight, so please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat with your names and neighborhoods, and we'll get started soon.
Hello to our extended LA Moss family. Thank you for being here.
We're so glad that people who are on the west side don't have to drive so far.
All right, let's get started. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy Now Connecting.
Digital love.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us, taking the time out of your very busy schedules and tuning in to our fundraiser. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Helen, and we're the co-executive directors of LA Moss. Every year, we look forward to the opportunity to come together to celebrate and reflect on our work. This year is no different.
Well, except I'm not wearing any pants.
And that we're gathered virtually. We have a lot of exciting changes. We have a new mission, we're transitioning into a place-based organization, and we're defining what it means to be anti-racist.
We have called this year's event Now Connecting, because as an organization, we are in the process of returning to our values, returning to our community, and connecting more deeply with our neighbors and partners in Frogtown and Northeast LA. We've also chosen this theme tonight to poke fun at how little it matters the quality of the production or technical level of artistry involved in a platform, and instead to center and share the conversations we've been having with our community, our board, and our team over the last year.
Tonight, we are excited to invite you into these conversations, which started with an action plan last year, which was then accelerated by COVID and our Northeast LA community response. Since then, we've been hard at work building a resident-led food hub program, hiring local community members to shape our work, and using our design skills as a tool for justice, connection, and communication.
All of the work we've been able to do in the past year and how quickly we've been able to pivot and address the urgent needs of our immediate community is because of our incredible team, the support of our board, and most importantly, the leadership of neighbors and residents who have been doing this work long before LA Moss ever existed.
Alex, Chaz, Lily, Linda, and Ronnie, along with a number of our all-star volunteers who are here tonight, have not only led us in this direction, but have also done the hard work needed to listen and work with our community during the pandemic. We are also especially excited to be unapologetically clear about who our community is, working class communities of color in Northeast LA.
Although it is certainly strange and surreal to not be able to see you all in person, we would still like to virtually cheers you all for your hard-fought wins and share how much your collaboration, support, and work has deeply inspired us. We'd like to give a special thanks to our board president, Shauna, and vice president, Renee, along with the newest members of our board, Marco and Jen, who you'll be hearing from at the end of our program.
This year has been full of uncertainty, and although we are optimistic about our future, our new mission, our deeper commitment to the community we serve, we also bear witness to the immense pressure and greater burden communities of color are facing during this time.
Even though It is very tough to ask you to support our organization when many of us need a break from giving, need a break from pushing, need a break to breathe. Many of us just can't give anymore after the last 4 years, 8 months, or 2 weeks. However, we can't take that break because our communities are not getting any break. Our communities are not getting any relief from the incredible financial strain the pandemic has placed on their already stretched resources. We urge you to join us tonight in making any donation you can give in a show of solidarity and support for working class communities of color.
We'd like to thank our sponsors for their generous contributions towards supporting our place-based efforts. From all of us at LA Mass, thank you for logging in tonight and for your continued commitment, partnership, and collaboration. We are so humbled and honored to have your support. We hope you enjoy the next 3 conversations led by our team with guest appearances by our favorite people. Enjoy this peek into our digital world. See you at Virtual Happy Hour later.
Hi everyone, I'm Chaz, Program Manager and Design Lead for LA Moss. As you may know, we've been shifting from an urban design to community-based organization. And I know a lot of you might be wondering, well, what has changed in our work and what this means for you as a member of the LA Moss community. And even though the role of design has evolved in our organization, our values are the same. And in fact, we've doubled down in our commitment to those values and to our community. So tonight, my coworker Ronnie and I will show you what it looks like and invite you into our design process. Over the years, we've worked in many LA communities developing thoughtful, playful, and contextually designed projects. Some of you might have seen our work, like the colorful street furniture on Western Ave in Koreatown, or the playful sidewalk patterns near the Gold Line Metro Station in Cypress Park, or the storefront redesigns in Watson, Wilmington. We've been known as the bench people, the storefront people, and most of you know us as the ADU people. And to our fundraiser guests, what work of ours that you know brought you here today? Let us know below in the chat. Now, we want you to get to know us as the Northeast LA people. Alex and Lily will touch on this later, but it's been the guiding factor of the evolution of design in our work. Since my background is in architecture, my definition of design is focused on something physical, something more physical, like the built environment. So I'm curious about what my coworkers, Ronnie's perspective is. Let's call him.
What's up, Chaz?
Hi, Ronnie.
What, like, who are all of these people? Have we been Zoom bombed again?
These are our fundraiser guests.
Oh, hey everyone. I'm Ronnie, Finance and Operations Director.
I was just telling everyone about how design has been evolving in our work, and I actually don't think it's changed as drastically as it sounds. So, like, rather than design being the purpose, which it's been in many of the cases in our other projects, it's more of a practice. So, in whatever form design takes, it'll center our community in Northeast LA and their values and goals.
I agree. It's not that different than before. Even when I think back to the internal design statement that we developed in June, we agreed that we see design as a value, a process, and a tool. And I think that's always been true of LMS.
Totally. And I've always believed that design should be a deep collaboration with the people who the project will impact. So outside LMS, I'm a member of Designers Protest, which is a collective of anti-racist designers dedicated to design justice in the built environment. And with LMS, I get to be a part of a team that partners directly with neighbors to push current norms of urban development towards community-driven solutions.
Yeah. When we were developing the Backyard Homes project, it was important for us to challenge where affordable housing could be and what it could look like, partnering with homeowners to build affordable housing for their neighbors and designing spaces that actually felt like home.
Right. And we know that design will continue to be important to our work, to make information more accessible and to how we problem solve, and using design process approach as we build initiatives with our neighbor.
Design process. Would you be able to share a little bit more about what you mean by design process, like especially from your perspective as a designer?
Sure. So the design process is an iterative problem-solving approach that helps you understand and define and iterate and develop ideas into something tangible. Usually that's a building for me, so architecture. This process takes into consideration social and environmental and financial opportunities and constraints to help guide the solution for the final building design. So in our shift to a community-driven approach, the design process would center community and their lived experiences, their knowledge and values for that tangible outcome.
That kind of sounds like how we launched the Northeast LA Community Response.
Yeah, and you were behind the scenes building that system out quickly to contact residents, deploy cash assistance, deliver food, and so much more. What was that process like?
Well, I mean, it all started with the phone tree, calling our neighbors to figure out how we could best support them. And we designed the program around those priorities.
What do you mean? How did you design it?
Well, this was a 5-step process. It started with actually the tracking. We built a robust system to track outreach calls, weekly resource distribution, and partnerships. Then we curated a resource guide to connect residents to resources outside of our program. From there, we actually called residents and followed up weekly to identify what support they needed. We also connected partners who shared the same values and commitment to our community in Northeast LA. This wouldn't be possible without our volunteers, though. We led weekly volunteer trainings and managed over 150 volunteers who helped with the outreach, the assembly, and the delivery. It then culminated in the distribution of resources through biweekly deliveries and ongoing check-in calls with residents.
It's really awesome to see it all come together and the behind the scenes process and how you approach design in a way that people really don't usually think about it by building out that robust, efficient system and developing partnerships, all while keeping the community's priorities centered.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that the operations director would actually be a designer?
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
I'm the newest member of the LA Moss design team. Does this mean I can join you and Elizabeth on those fun design team lunches?
Yeah, designer Ronnie, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, that's my approach to building out the system. But a big part of the community response was also creating flyers that spread the word about our program, providing research referrals, and educating residents about their housing rights. And that was all you. Like, how'd your process look like, and how would you compare it to design work in our other programs?
I think that developing the flyers was definitely a group effort. So like with the housing rights flyer, we started by gathering all that dense information on homeowner and landlord rights during COVID, at the beginning of COVID. And then we summarized and formatted that information into a rough written outline. Then we reworked it into a graphic layout. So we prioritized highlighting major common questions that renters had in the content. And then we visually aligned those questions to the rights that the renters had, or the answers to those questions for each of the topics. And then we used a large amount of graphic representation to communicate information without words. And we worked together to make all of that complex information more accessible. I think in terms of comparing it to other programs, whether that be with homeowners or small businesses, we partner with them to make sure that we understand their needs and preferences and develop options that we walk through together. And then we work out a final design. So in our design work, I think our goals are to be sincere in the information that we're sharing and that the final design reflects the partner's values.
Wow, it's so cool to hear about your process and to see your design workspace and really get a sneak peek at Chad's at work. We have such similar approaches, even though we use entirely different platforms and skills. So it's just really cool that we have similar approaches. And it's clear also that we're both like letting our values and the community lead that process.
Yeah, I hope it's coming across to our actual community members. Maybe we should get Ceci and get her perspective. Let's call her.
That's a great idea. Let's call Ceci. Hi, Ceci.
Hi, Ronnie. How are you?
Good,
Welcome to
good.
my home.
Hi, Sassy.
Welcome to our fundraiser. You're such a long time neighborhood activist, a leader of the Elysian Valley Senior Group, and the co-creator of the Northeast LA Community Response. And I just want to ask you, what was it like co-creating that initiative with us?
You guys give so much credit, but it was actually Ali Moss who came to us. And it was so great in a way because you came to us before the pandemic and asked us, sat down and asked. I remember I invited Gary Wong with me to sit down and go, Ali Moss is coming. Let's tell him what we think's going on here, what we, could suggest. And we did, and listened, and there was a lot of conversation. It was something that we were not used to really working with. We were always sort of like, this is what you're going to get, and that's all we can do. And we used to have to sometimes take that, even though it wasn't what we needed. And so this has been such a big change. I've learned a lot from you guys. That's all I got to say. I've learned a lot.
Thank you, Ceci. I mean, we've learned so much from you too in this whole process, and we just want to continue to redefine what collaboration means in these spaces, and it means so much that we have your support through the whole process.
Ronnie and I were talking earlier about our design process, saying that in whatever form design takes in our work, it'll center our community, and that the foundation of a meaningful solution is listening to our neighbors. And your advocacy for our neighbors has been really critical to that. Would you be able to share a little bit more about what you're hearing when you're making calls during the community response?
We had our friends who were undocumented. I had a young child call me. She's 17. Like most of the children of parents who don't speak English, their children do their business for them. I remember her calling me, said, Ceci, we need help. Is there anything we qualify for? And I'm like, no, not that I know. I remember calling Ellie Moss and I said, Helen, this is a challenge. And back then, it was at a time in the beginning where undocumented, our neighbors weren't eligible to receive anything. We couldn't find anything. Guess what? They came up with funds for them. They said, Ceci, give me their phone number. We will talk to them. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Thank you, Ceci, for really being a champion for our undocumented neighbors, especially when these resources aren't designed to be accessible or inclusive to everyone. You alluded to this conversation we had with you and Gary before the pandemic. I believe then you had shared this idea of the Community Resource Hub. Can you tell us a little bit more about that idea?
So we decided that, wait a minute, why are we waiting for people to help us? Why can't we, just like when they call me, Ceci, can you look this up? I need this number. Can you print this form for me? Can you find out how we can get this done? And I'm like, Siri or phone or computer or however I could do it, but I'm limited too. And I just thought, whoa, okay, why can't we have a location where we could have a computer, some kind of resources where people could come in and learn how to do this on their own, to empower themselves, to be able to say, hey, I did this, I'm going to show my neighbor because she needs the same thing.
It's such a great idea, and we hope that the Market Detail can evolve into that kind of local resource hub. But even before we launched that, this resource exchange was already in motion with the phone tree that you and other neighbors had started. I think to us, that's really reflective of Elysian Valley and how there's already systems designed by neighbors who just really care about each other.
I've been here a little under 50 years, but prior to that, my husband's family, I remember telling stories about, they would help the neighbors. A woman would go to have a baby and she had children, and the neighbor, not a relative, would possibly take care of her children. And I'm like, what? Strangers? Well, so that's a kind of community that is seated here. I think the people who come here, who have lived here. I've known Helen since she was a young little child, and it's still, my son came back to live here. My daughter lives here, my grandson. It makes things quite unique, and that's the greatness of the community. And the surrounding communities also are like that too. Cypress Park, we have LaSalle, we have Lincoln Heights, we have Atwater, and Echo Park and Silver Lake, all surrounding here, connecting us to each other.
That's beautiful. Before we wrap, how do you think we as partners, as neighbors, can really improve access to these resources and help make some of these systems more inclusive?
We want to empower people with information. That's our key right now. How can we not tell people what to do, but give them the info and let them choose, okay, this is what I want to do with it, whether it's stand in line at the Mercadito or not, or, do I really need to file papers? I mean, for the stimulus, when I'm having such a hard time, I'll just give up. And we're like, no, don't give up. Don't give up. This is difficult, but we'll have other people who will help you. It's not going to be that bad. Watch and see. Watch and see.
Thanks, Ceci, so much for joining us tonight and having a conversation with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Ceci.
It was my pleasure, Ronnie and Chaz. And as always, I'm here and want to say goodbye to everyone at LA Moss and see you at the Mercadito every Friday. We're there from 2 to 4 or 5, I think. If you're willing to work, stay to 5. Take care. Bye-bye.
Chaz, now that we've had a chance to hear from our partner on the value of design and systems in our work, how would you describe the value of design and community work?
I think even though resources and amenities are limited in Elysian Valley, like Ceci was saying, there's a strong desire for neighbors to really help each other. And I think we'll continue to use design to make information more accessible and to problem solve on how we're going to get some of these ideas up and running.
Well, I mean, now that we've gotten to hear from Ceci, it would be great to hear from more of our community members.
Yeah, let's do it.
Click.
No matter if you're from Elysian Valley, also known as Frogtown, or Highland Park, or Lincoln Heights, or Montecito Heights, which is where I'm from, we take so much pride to be from the Northeast LA area.
We have our own culture. And for Frogtown, I love that we all grew up together, everybody went to the same elementary, middle school, and high school. So you'll be walking down the street and you already know somebody.
Everybody talks to each other, or at least says hey and good morning in the mornings and greets you.
Even though we might not be best friends, I think the community itself wants the best for each other.
People find a way to come together and work together and find commonality.
You go to the park and maybe you're playing basketball. You don't know what everyone's background is, but everyone brings what they have back home to the court, and you can share your experiences there, but you can also strip away those experiences and you just meet each other personally. My neighbors allow for an opportunity to learn from one another.
My neighbors are very helpful and they're really quiet, but they're there whenever you need something.
Because we do come from immigrant families and middle class or lower class communities, so we've all gotten used to fending for ourselves but also coming together. And I feel not a lot of cities have that, because not a lot of cities really have such a diverse community.
The diversity is inherent, and the strongest systems have diversity.
The diversity of our community, also all the different local resources that we have, the parks.
Some beautiful diversity of both natural systems and community partners here in Northeast LA. So a lot to love, a lot to learn from others, and just really honored to be a part of this community.
My favorite place in the neighborhood would probably be the river.
My favorite place in Cypress Park is the LA River.
My favorite place in Northeast LA is the LA River.
Because it's so refreshing and You can just walk peacefully.
I like biking and seeing the different things that are going on in the river, especially the nature that is coming back.
Look at the different birds and the different plants.
I wasn't really allowed to go there when I was growing up in this neighborhood. It was much more dangerous. But as an adult, I really like spending time there. I like walking there.
The Audubon Center at Debs Park. I know the LA River gets a lot of love, but it really is just nestled right next to the Arroyo Seco, which also has a ton of history. And that park's just a beautiful hidden gem.
Avenue 26 Tacos, and I think if you grow up anywhere in this area, you know exactly where they're located.
My favorite place in the neighborhood, I think we're sitting in it. This is a community garden that I was lucky enough to start about 10 years ago now, and it's about 1/4 acre. We have 35 families that we host with garden plots, and we're a hub for LA compost. We collect kitchen scraps from all over the region, really, and now we get to be a distribution point for food forward food through LA Moss as well.
My favorite place in Northeast LA is the Recreation Center in Frogtown, because I've been coming here since I was probably like 5. There's been a lot of programs here, and around the age of 10 I joined the teen club, and I've been coming here ever since. I volunteered. This is where I've got my first job. This is where I met everybody.
I hope that we're able to create these resources and spaces for kids to go and learn more about themselves and learn more about what they want to do in the future.
There's so many resources. There's a lot of things happening here in Cypress Park, and I want to be able to tap into that and make sure that other people know about it. So just be a resource to the community that I was born and raised in.
They're connected to this area, whether it be through parents or because they grew up here themselves. They always find a way to come back and give back to the community.
I did move a lot when I was younger, but I always felt at home here.
My wife and I and 2 little ones call Highland Park home.
A lot of people from this neighborhood are from the same town my parents are from in Mexico. My mom and dad met in this neighborhood.
My parents actually met in Northeast LA at church.
The Catholic church in this area, St. Anne's, still brings a saint from San Martin and hosts him. So that connection to the old town in Mexico is still there. And I think for us it really felt like a family in a town more than, you know, just residents in a city. My vision for my community is that residents that live here now are able to enjoy this neighborhood as it grows and prospers.
How do we build a solid human network so that in times like these, we are resilient and we are healthy because we are leaning on one another?
We've been in really hard times during the pandemic, so I think part of the vision is also retooling people's skills to also take part in whatever new economy emerges, but also that it's affordable to people that are from this neighborhood and that want to enjoy it.
My vision is that we don't have construction on every other house and every other block, so that people can get a little bit of normalcy, a little bit of stability in where they live and not have fear of you know, new neighbors. That may not be a bad thing, but it's still a fear. Being driven out of their apartments or homes that they rent.
We've definitely struggled as being part of this neighborhood, but we appreciate it so much that we chose to stay here.
What I would love to see in my community for the future is more community leaders that grew up here. So people like me, you know, people that grew up here who have been coming here like to the park, you know, ever since they were younger, or like that has just been living here for generations. I think their voices are really important. I think that when someone who isn't from the city or from the community tries to like come in here and act like and put like the whole like savior complex on us, a lot of people just don't fall for it, or it could be trustworthy, but we're just so used to like people using us for their own benefit in a way. So I think we need community leaders that are from this community.
And I think that it's important to take care of what's at home, and home extends to not just your front yard, but also to your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor.
And I want our community to just thrive. I think thriving for us means healthy and happiness. whatever that looks like for different people.
Hey Alex, did you see the video that Ronnie just sent on Slack?
Yeah, I loved it. It's so special to hear from the folks we've been working with through the community response in Mercadito about what makes this place special to them.
Yeah, I agree. What really resonated with me was Emily and Jolette, what they shared. You know, I've seen them grow up here, and as someone who was born and raised in EV, I'd say what makes it special to me is the community members and how everyone's always willing to help each other. And my favorite spot is definitely the park.
I love the park. Even though it's a completely different neighborhood and country for me, living in LA and working here in Elysian Valley sometimes reminds me of home.
Where did you grow up again? Is it Central Mexico?
Yeah, in Cholula, Puebla. Cholula like the hot sauce. It's a small town where my parents owned a local corner store. And my favorite place there is the local market because that's where I grew up. That's where I would play with my cousins. And some of my aunts and uncles had some stores there too. And sometimes we would kind of steal some Snickers bars from my Tío Jorge's candy shop. He knew, but he looked the other way. I'd love to hear from our fundraiser guests. What makes your neighborhood special? And do you have a favorite local spot? Let us know in the chat below. And by the way, I'm Alex, Program Manager.
And I'm Lily, Engagement Lead at LA Moss.
Lily, today's your 6-month anniversary with LA Moss. Congratulations. So how's it been? Is it what you expected?
You know, I didn't actually know what to expect when I joined the team, but it's been awesome. The team is amazing. I love working in the community and I love learning more about my community. Ceci, who I've known for almost 10 years, first invited me to volunteer with the Northeast LA Community Response since I grew up here, and the community is like family to me. I was just happy to support my neighbors, the people who always supported me.
Yeah, Ceci's awesome. She and David de la Torre from the Elysian Valley Neighborhood Watch are the reason why we started the community response. They were doing this work already with a phone tree, calling and checking in on neighbors. We asked them how we could support and created more infrastructure around what they were already doing.
You know, I really like that approach, and I think that's what I've come to appreciate about working with LA Moss. I align with the team's values and about how we want to truly partner with community members.
And that's basically been the approach to this entire place-based shift. Even before COVID, when we first started moving in this direction in 2019, we wanted to make sure the shift would be not just meaningful for us, but more importantly for our community. We had conversations with neighbors to learn about their experiences and what they wanted to see here. Our intention with the shift has always been to partner with the community and support resident-led initiatives.
But why Northeast LA?
Well, actually, we've always had roots here in this neighborhood. Early on in our work, we led a project called Futuro de Frogtown, where we engaged with residents about what they wanted to see or not see in their neighborhood. That was about 5 years ago now, and even then, we were already hearing from folks about their fear of displacement, especially with working class and multi-generational families. That and the fear of losing the character of the community, which until then had been largely Latino and Asian families.
Yeah, I've definitely witnessed that. My family's been here for a really long time, and we've seen a lot of change, especially in more recent years. Like, a lot of my old neighbors and my childhood friends have moved out of EV, and a lot of new business have been popping up. And I honestly don't feel like they're necessarily here for us.
I get that. Thank you for sharing, Lily. And look at you and your middle school friends in that picture. It's so cute. That's definitely one of the reasons why we felt the need to reground our work here in Elysian Valley. Before this year, we were working all over LA, using our design and planning skills to address similar challenges of displacement in other neighborhoods. We really believe in the potential of what we've been able to do elsewhere, like building affordable housing or supporting mom and pop businesses. But we think that the work can be more lasting and have more of an impact when it's rooted in a place and accountable to a specific community. For us, we want that to be our community here in Frogtown and in Northeast LA.
You know, a fun fact about Frogtown is that a couple years ago, they found that the frogs in the river weren't actually frogs. They were toads.
Toads. Give me a sec. That's Helen.
Okay.
Hello.
Great news, Alex. Food Forward said they're able to donate a total of 6 pallets of produce for the Mercadito this week.
Cool. That's so exciting. We'll have more to share with our food hub leaders. I'll let Lily know right now.
Super. Tell Lily I said hi and ask her if she's beaten her high score on that Google dinosaur game.
Okay, will do. Bye. Helen says hi. We're gonna have a lot more food this week. So can you let our food hub leaders know, please? And also she mentioned something about a dinosaur game.
I have no idea what she's talking about. But yeah, I'll let them know tomorrow morning. It's awesome that we have 10 food hubs now outside of the Mercadito. Maybe we should tell our guests about it.
Okay. So last month, we launched the Northeast LA Mercadito, or Little Market. Lily came up with that name. It's a market-style food distribution where families come pick up fresh, free produce. And the program is led by LA Mas in partnership with Food Forward, the Elysian Valley Community Garden, LA Compost, and other weekly supporters.
So we currently operate the distribution with the help of local volunteers. We're partnering with community members to establish a decentralized network of food hubs that are going to be hosted by resident leaders. We hope this can serve as an entry point for neighbors to organize and access other resources.
And these food hub leaders are dispersed in neighborhoods across Northeast LA. They make sure that neighbors can pick up produce directly from their home, and some have been doing this work long before our program started. Like Teresa Roman with Acción Comunitaria, she was already supporting over 100 families every week before we connected.
You know, it's cool to see how our food program has evolved this summer, from purchasing food for neighbors during the community response to now having residents host their own food hubs. It's like little mercaditos.
Yeah, it was great that we received so much support for the community response to be able to purchase groceries and food staples during that initiative. But when we created the Mercadito, we knew that it needed to be more sustainable, and we wanted it to be owned and led by residents. Community members know the best way to distribute food and other resources to their neighbors. And now we want to continue to foster those exchanges.
Yeah, it's like how EV has always had this built-in support system where neighbors always shared resources with each other, whether it was babysitting each other's kids, repairing each other's cars, or exchanging tamales during Christmas.
Exactly. And now I'm really craving some of my tia's tamales. Just like with the community response, which was an extension of our neighbors, David and Ceci's phone tree, Mercadito is a way for us to honor the social infrastructure that already exists while creating new pathways for community ownership.
I love that. And as we develop more programs with the community, I hope more residents can see themselves not only participating, but leading these initiatives and really shaping the future of the neighborhood.
For reals. Okay, Lily, gotta go get dinner started, and now I'm wishing we could make tamales. Maybe get your mom's recipe and I can swap for my tias?
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Thank you, Lily. Bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda, a program manager with LA Mas. I hope you've been enjoying Now Connecting so far. When we first thought of our fundraiser theme, we were really thinking about how our world would become increasingly local and digital. The pandemic really shed light on the need to organize at a neighborhood level, which led to our Northeast LA community response. And at the same time, we're using technology like Zoom and Slack to connect with more people than ever before. And as unprecedented as this year has been, it all felt a little familiar. We're remembering to lend sugar to our neighbors while being reminded of the early days of online social networking. Speaking of which, when you think of those days, is there anything that stands out to you, like your AIM screen name or that screechy dial-up modem sound that we played for you in the beginning? Reminisce with us in the chat. For LMS, the way that we've been connecting is by having conversations with our neighbors and bringing together partners from our community, which you've heard again and again tonight, seeing how the role of design has evolved in our work, and also seeing how we're trying to foster more resident leadership. This is really the crux of our new mission, vision, and approach, which we shared earlier this summer. And you can also see right now, I think right here. So we've named our new direction, but we know that the work doesn't stop there. We know that these ideas of neighborhood resilience and community ownership don't just happen overnight. So our team is currently going through a few different processes to turn those ideals into action. First, Alex has been leading us in ground truthing, which is our process to explore the top priorities identified by residents during the community response. So these were affordable housing, economic development, and food access. And we're really trying to figure out how to turn these priorities into long-term programming. We're also uprooting the way that we've worked in the past. Through our program with Bridgespan, we're doing some strategic planning and really getting clear on our impact. And with Castillo Consulting Partners, we're laying the foundation for an anti-racist framework, really trying to uncover how we're complicit and embedded in racist systems so that we don't replicate same patterns of oppression that communities of color have long faced. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of thought partners in our process, including some of you. And now I want to invite you into a conversation with Maria Cabildo, who led us in our mission and vision process, and Naomi Iwasaki, who serves on the board of LMS. Both of them are community development practitioners with deep roots in LA and strong social justice values. Let's see what they think about all this. Thank you, Maria and Naomi, for joining me and our guests tonight. First off, I understand that you two go way back. How do you know each other outside of LA Moss?
I'm actually friends with people's moms. So I know Naomi's mom. It's so funny. And then for Mark Lopez from East Yards, I'm friends with his grandmother. You know, it's just like, that's what happens when you've been around LA your whole life, actually.
That's awesome, though. You have a strong legacy in LA.
Yeah, I was a babysitter to many Japanese American activists as a teenager. And I remember I watched kids while they went out and fought for reparations. And I remember watching the kids when they were out at the reparations marches.
I think actually, Maria, the one time that I was with Mayumi Masaoka and you babysat the both of us was the first time I saw Dark Crystal, that like wild movie with the Muppets.
Oh my God.
And I think it was one of the first movies that really scared me when I was little.
Oh no!
Oh no! It was, I mean, you know, like not in a traumatic way, but I remember, you know, oh, this is not Care Bears.
Oh my God! I don't remember that. Oh
But
my
I was
God,
in a,
Naomi, did I babysit you? I didn't know that.
Your face I see on my computer screen.
And so, Naomi, as a board member for the past 2 years, can you share what it's been like to kind of see this transition in action, having joined the board when we were an urban design nonprofit and then seeing us evolve into a community-based organization?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I joined the board when I think LA Moss was more known and both internally and externally as this urban design policy nonprofit. And so I remember the board meeting when Elizabeth and Helen sort of shared with us this desire or this intention to shift to be more place-based, to be more community-based, and to really focus the efforts and talents that they have in Northeast LA and specifically in Frogtown. And me personally, just with my background, I have always felt that that's something that LA Moss could always grow in, is to have really authentic community voices at the forefront and really guiding not just the mission, but the work and the direction of the organization. At the same time, I got a little nervous, if I'm going to be honest. I got a little nervous. And I think, again, that's just me drawing on my personal experience of the communities that I grew up in and around. I have very strong ties to Little Tokyo. And, you know, the origins of community development work in Little Tokyo were really driven by people. It wasn't driven by an organization. And so the people created organizations to help you know, make their work more effective and to organize themselves. And so, you know, I think to LMAS's credit, they've really understood that this is not sort of a maybe traditional community-based organization way of doing this sort of place-based work, and have committed to listen. They've committed to listen to their peers. They've committed, it seems, to listen to residents and to community members and small business owners. I've said this a million times to Elizabeth and Helen, but there's no getting an A+ in community engagement work and in community organizing. And I think that they've really tried to take that to heart, and not try to make this, this perfect process or, this flawless system, because it's messy work, and that's okay. But that is the reality of doing work where organizations are trying to empower members of the community to really lead and designate the direction.
I really appreciated Naomi raising the issue of messiness, right? It's not easy. And even, when we founded East LA Community Corporation, the founders, we all had very deep roots in that community, and it was still really challenging. And we faced, challenges from, people that lived in the community as well, right? Because within communities, there are always people that have benefited from the status quo. There are people that have a stake in things not changing. So just, I think, be prepared for messiness. Be prepared for difficult days ahead, for days where you're, working, so hard, and yet things don't move. I mean, it's tough. And I think one of the things that's really important is I love this, something that I heard someone say early in the pandemic, I believe it was Manuel Pastor, who said, you can only move as fast as the speed of trust. And when you're doing community work, it's all trust-based work. Community organizing is all trust-based work, and it's going to take time.
I think you both bring up really important points that we're definitely having like a lot of challenging conversations around, and trying to figure out. And I think especially what you both have said about, moving at the speed of trust, and that community work is trust building work. Something that's really important to our team is making sure that, we've now named that we have this commitment to working class communities of color. And what does that like really look like in an authentic and genuine way? And I think that's, a big reason why we are trying to establish an anti-racist framework and like implementation plan for the organization. And so from both of your perspectives, like what do you hope that that looks like for LMAS?
Racism is the status quo. And so to really commit to anti-racism means dismantling existing structures of power, assumptions in policy, assumptions in design, assumptions in engagement even. And so it's not, I think other people have said it much better than me, but it's not just sort of sitting back and not being racist. It's actively, proactively trying to undo all of the harm of these racist systemic structures that have been built up since the foundation of this country. And so when you mentioned status quo, Maria, that really struck me as something that we talked about with the board in our anti-racist conversation, and is something that, it's the status quo, so that is in and of itself going to be a long-term effort. And again, maybe the theme of this conversation is messy, but this is also not sort of clean-cut, streamlined work. And I'm inspired that the organization wants to commit to this, and what that looks like, what that looks like for staff, individual staff, what that looks like for the team leads, for the executive directors, what that looks like for the board to be strategic partners or to be more involved or less involved. I think the more we can talk about this, the more we can dig into the nuances, which I think is really where progress lies, is in really talking through not just, what statement are we going to put out this year, or, let's get some benchmarks in, and then we've met those benchmarks, and then now we're anti-racist. I think it's a longer journey than that. It's a deeper journey than that. And I do think that the board and the organization are committed to that.
It's really awesome to hear that, coming from you as a board member, knowing that, your leadership is guiding this framework as well, and with strong values. Maria, was there anything you wanted to add related to that?
No, I mean, I think just hearing that from Naomi as a board member is just really makes me feel really good about where LA Mas is going. And then I think the other piece is that what Naomi also touched on, right, is that we're dealing with racist systems. And I think it's really important that people understand that the reasons why our communities have been less invested in, the reasons why people of color haven't been able to build wealth because they've been denied access to credit. I mean, those are all the result of racist systems. And I think as the staff is able to understand that, I think it leads to just more powerful campaigns in the future.
I think we're still thinking about how we can make sure that this is actually working toward, systemic change. Yeah, I think disrupting some of those power structures in place. So I was wondering if you had any more to share about, how you see us moving from this current phase that we're in to a more systemic impact.
As I'm thinking back of, what we talked about today, it's so daunting. It's like, this is long-term and this is messy and it's systemic and it's hard work. And so I think, LA Mas isn't doing this by themselves. No organization should be doing this by themselves. Like coalitions are important. Uplifting collectives, I think, are important. And so I think for LA Mas to, look around and figure out who are some allies that they can support, as well as, be in community with, because, they're the same goals, they're are the same, same types of communities, maybe if they're not in the same geographic or cultural place, but there are sort of similar end games or similar changes that different communities and different organizations and different leaders and members would like to see.
Absolutely, Naomi, I think that's just critical, right? What we've learned is really, we are stronger together. I think the pandemic's shown us that, right? It's like we are not these, we can't live in a silo. We really need each other. Our long-term survival actually depends on each other. And I think the same is true for organizations, right? It really is about working in collaboration, coalition, and probably ways that LA Mas hasn't in the past. But I think it definitely has to be part of the muscles that it builds in the future.
Well, thank you both. As always, it's been lovely talking to you. Before I go, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with us and our fundraiser guests?
Well, just continue to support LA Mas. They're organization. I've seen them over the past few months, and the work that they've done, meeting the urgent needs in the community has just been critical. So I'm really grateful for all of your work. And just to, let's persevere and onward, I'm really hopeful about the future. In LA County, we have a lot to celebrate in terms of new leadership at the county level, equitable distribution of resources through Measure J. So just, I think LA Mas's future is bright, and looking forward to seeing what emerges in the future.
I think I would want to invite folks along for this journey that LA Mas has taken on in terms of a transition and in terms of shifting, and how that takes a lot of conversations, figuring out where folks are at with their values and what their outcomes are, their goals are, and sharing language around how to figure out solutions to challenges and needs, and really identifying strengths and expertise that community members are able to share. So I'm excited to sort of, again, be supportive and be witness to this journey, and would invite all of you and other supporters of LA Mas to come along for that ride.
Thank you both.
Does anyone remember Jughead, or am I the only? I know the Stonehenge of the internet.
I was going to ask you, what are you talking about? What is a Jughead?
I've never heard of that. I've heard of Ask Jeeves, but we did have computer class where we had to learn how to type, and play games, basically.
Yeah, basically play computer games.
Wait, remember how it like would take over your phone? My dad would be at the store trying to call my mom to the house, and it would be busy, and he would like send people over to knock and be like, "Get those kids off the internet! I'm trying to call their mom."
I remember that. Yeah, there's
I totally remember that. You pick up the phone and you'd be like, and I'd be like, oh.
Your whole chat would be gone.
Okay. Jughead is real. I am not crazy. It is a real search
That's
engine
real.
from 1993.
I was born in 1993.
Me too.
Cool.
Me too.
Cool.
Well, that was fun. I hope everyone was glued to your screens like I was. This nostalgia was strong. And even though it makes me long for certain parts of the 90s, something like tonight really gives me hope for the future coming up. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Sampson, one of the newest board members here of LA Moss and chair of this year's house committee.
Hey everybody, my name is Marco Ramirez and I'm also one of the other newest member of the board. And thank you all for joining us for this year's annual fundraiser.
So Marco, what was your favorite part of this evening?
I'm so old. You know, at the beginning, I feel so old. We started off with Zap and it took me back hard to the days where I used to drive, allegedly, a Buick Regal. And I also didn't know I had all this unresolved dial-up trauma. How about you?
Well, I really did enjoy the music and the soundtrack, but for me, just seeing all of the stories, the video reel of everyone who shared their stories and was willing to go out and share a piece of Northeast LA with us, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, same here. It was so fresh and you know, just real. And I don't know, I laughed and I also felt bad because I feel really old. But on a more serious note, you know, I'm excited to see where the organization is headed. You know, and it's clear that there's a lot of transformation going on. We have a new mission, we have new programs, and that's a lot of change. And change is not easy. Maria and Naomi talked about how messy it is. And it reminds me of something I read from one of my favorite authors, Thich Nhat Hanh. You know, he's a Buddhist monk and poet, and he writes, "You enter the path of transformation when you begin to practice the words you pronounce." And I'm excited to see, you know, how we transition as we pronounce. We pronounce a lot of words, a lot of things, and we committed to doing things differently. And so I'm excited to see how we do this with a level of thoughtfulness. And I know that it carried throughout this program. Jen, what are you most excited to see from LA Moss?
You know, for me, there's so many things that are exciting about it because I've had the opportunity to see them grow from the beginning. First, I was fortunate to be one of their partners, and now being a part of the board is such an amazing honor. And the reason why I agreed to join is because I've always been inspired by the way their team approaches the work. The thoughtfulness, the community partnerships, the playfulness in approach, and all of the creativity they bring to challenging the rules. Not a lot of organizations are willing to question those assumptions and take those risks. So I really appreciate that sort of courage and bravery and putting themselves out there. And I'm hoping that as we become more grounded in community, more grounded in Northeast LA, that our work will continue to challenge the norms of community development.
I couldn't agree more. You know, I've been in this field for about 20 years, and it's easy to stick with the same old approach. However, like Maria mentioned, we have to explore alternatives to challenge the status quo. We have to break some systems. And echoing Naomi's comments, we invite you all to join us in this journey, to make investment in this work, in the community, and we urge you to donate, mos.la/donate, or reach out to staff and get involved. Like I said, we pronounced a lot, and now we're on the path to practice, and we invite you to pronounce and practice with us.
Well said. So it's been a Wednesday evening on Zoom. It may have been many Zooms for you today already, but we really want to thank everyone who made tonight possible. Thank you to all of my fellow committee host members, Ashley, Dana, Ivy, Jenna, Joshua, Marcia, Miranda, Paul, Ron, Tracy, and Yasmin. You all did excellent work this year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we also want to thank, we also give a special shout out to our extra generous champion and advocate level sponsors, Dake Wilson Architects, AARP California, Standard Vision, FLL Consulting, and Max and Carrie Levine.
And to everyone who donated, who sponsored tonight's event, who attended, who put comments in the chat, we really want to thank you for being here and showing up for LA Moss so we can show up for you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Stick around for virtual happy hour. Back to you, Helen and Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Jen and Marco. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and who continues to support the LA Moss family and the LA Moss community. It means a lot to all of us.
And that's a wrap to our program, but we invite you to stick around and connect with our team during virtual happy hour. We also understand if you need to hop off now. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the near future.